Today we'll be sharing a story from Bryant Archer. Bryant will share this story plus a video interview at a later date. To give a quick introduction, he is the sole survivor in the 1994 Popeye shooting in Gadsden, Alabama, where 3 of his co-workers tragically lost their lives. We're still building that case for presentation, which will consist of interviews and clips. Today Bryant will talk about an interesting tale of body retrieval from Hurricane Katrina in 2005.
Well, 2005, we had a terrible Hurricane Katrina that came. I was working at Crestwood as a caretaker for the cemetery and the grounds, as far as weed eating, mowing, and things of that nature. The hurricane had came, and within 2 weeks, they started calling, asking if anybody would come and help with the hurricane that had came. We didn't know exactly what they were asking for, but we knew it was going to be bad. We just didn't know how bad. We got on the plane. We got on there, and you could tell everybody pivoted over to the plane to see the devastation that you could see. That it was terrible. Things were on fire. You could see smoke. You could see water just in the city. Basically, looked like a bomb went off. And when we landed, crazy part is they put us on prison buses, which that was totally nuts in itself. But they got us where they wanted to talk about what they needed. It started out with a decent sized room, and as they proceeded to tell us about we were going to be there to pick up bodies, that there's a lot of people out there, and here's your body bags, and we're going to be putting you on boats. They told us if someone's yelling and screaming or wanting to get help or whatever, that's not what you're there for. You're on a boat to pick up people that has passed. We have another crew that's going to pick up people that survived, and basically that's not your job. Your job is to go and get bodies. So we get on a boat, go out and pick up people. Before we even got started through the whole thing, half the room had already left. So when we got to the boats, they fill them up, and we'd go. All the houses that we went to, you could smell being that I'd been at funeral homes before, I could kind of tell you a little bit about the smell. But the smell kind of gave you a nauseating smell. And as you got closer to it, you knew you were getting to it, because it was just a nasty smell. Of course, over the 9 months I was there, I got used to that smell pretty quick. Every week we'd have more people quit to go over the bridge. When we got there, the police department had quit. They had went over the bridge, so we had no police department. The only thing we had there was reservists and Army. They had the Corps of Engineers there trying to fix the levees. It seems like every time they'd fix a levee, another would break, or we'd end up with water going back, and then it'd just come back the next day. So it was never ending. The first 6 weeks, we had picked up about 112 bodies. They had sprayed on the houses that there was bodies in the houses. The worst part was picking up women and kids. The bodies didn't look human. They looked like the Michelin Man with big blowed up. They just looked like a big huge blob. You put them in body bags. Some of them you just had to tie up to the boat. And every day we'd go in, we'd have to go to the French Quarter. That's where we'd all meet, because that was the only place you could go. The rest of the places were flooded. They wanted us to go to the hospital. We didn't. I happened to not actually go to the hospital, but I hear it was pretty bad. They had taken people out of a nursing home or so and put them in the hospital thinking it was a safe place. Sadly, that wasn't the case. They ended up having casualties there from the hurricane. FEMA kind of was in and out as far as I could see. we'd have to go 100 miles out to even get a place to stay. The motel we stayed at didn't have running water or power, so it's pretty much worthless as far as I was concerned. What's the point in going there if you don't have the resources? So FEMA finally brought trailers in for us to use, but what they didn't bother to tell us, they were letting people that were there stay in them too. So you had to deal with homeless people going into these trailers. I didn't feel comfortable with that, so I didn't do that. I made sure that I'm going home. This is how I felt about it. I'm the one here, and I'm going home. When we would go out, we would get shot at because we weren't picking people up, because I told you before, we weren't there to pick up people who were alive. We were there to pick up people who were deceased. As we get the bodies, we'd have to go back and drop them off. The county and the coroner's office had set up a makeshift morgue, and as we brought more in, as you could figure out, they had no room to put them. So 830 people total that we had done bringing in, that's a lot of people, and they didn't have the resources. And with that being said, I hate to say it, but when you see people just stacked up, just laying there that you brought in, didn't seem humane. But that's how it was. They didn't have nowhere to put them, and that's how it was. I was there for 9 months. Every time I'd call my family, tell them what's going on, which is very, very, very brief. We were told not to tell kind of what was going on there. When we did get there, however, they didn't have the resources to even make phone calls. Back then they had flip phones. You don't have telephones like you do today. Pagers were still in place. There's a lot still going on that they didn't have that option. So having a landline was really crucial to being able to talk to your family. 9 months went out. I was supposed to go back, but I didn't. I ended up having a nervous breakdown afterwards. They didn't give us any resources after the fact of what took place and what we dealt with. They didn't give us any of that. I ended up having to get counseling on my own. That's when I told them what had happened. That's when things started going. I already had post-traumatic stress disorder from getting shot 5 times at Popeyes in '94. So this probably wasn't a good idea to go deal with Katrina, but I felt there was a need, and I felt I had to go there. Once I got there, I seen that the job needed to take place. The resources that we had were limited. The food that we had, you didn't have a way of cooking, so everything came in a can. So luckily the Army would give us packs of the MREs. We'd eat those every so often. You'd have to go out to get food to bring back. People would steal your food. So it was never a pleasant experience being there. What I take away from it is I knew what I had to do when I was there, but the fact of the matter is it probably could have been somebody else besides me.